What's up, boys? Welcome back to another video. Today I'm gonna teach you guys the new standard TvP build, the new super standard macro TvP that everyone has been doing. I've been doing a lot of it on stream to good successes too, but I do think the build is quite complicated, so I thought you guys could use a video. Normally most of my builds are like memes and stuff that I show you guys, but today I'm just gonna teach you guys the new standard because that is pretty complicated and I think you guys could use some explanation with that. In case you didn't know, nowadays in TvP the meta is to actually open Marine instead of Reaper. It allows for a lot of mind games and things like that. In this game I'll just be going for a 3cc. I think this build is safe against pretty much everything. There are some builds it is bad against, but since no one does those builds, I would rather not reveal those in the video, because I know there's some of you dirty Protoss players watching, knowing what is to know what is going to come on the ladder. So that's going to be a nope for me, guys. So of course it does have some weaknesses, but overall against all the meta builds I think it's pretty decent, even though it's 3cc. I think you can hold Blink all in. It's good against Stargates, fine against Robo, you know. I do SCV scout always with this build, by the way, especially since you go Marine first, you do need to scout. So I rally my 18th SCV, the standard TvP scout. Then instead of the Reaper, we go for the Marine, like I said. Just a small tip, always use an extra SCV to kill the probe. Like here I pulled it a bit late, but you don't really want to be wasting time stopping your CC, making it again and stuff like that. Because probes do get very annoying and it can actually add up to when they send an adept to your base, for example. So always send an extra SCV for the start. After the Marine we go straight for the reactor. With the SCV I'm just going to scout it. There's a Nexus, of course. If you want to do perfect scouting, guys, wait for the probe to make the pylon here. So usually you will have to stay around for like 5 or 10 seconds. If there's not a pylon, I would recommend you guys to scout around a bit for proxy Stargate. Like, I don't know where people usually build this. Could be here, wherever. If they don't make a second pylon, just check around. So instead of going directly back to your base, take a detour a bit, go like this, or maybe go over here, wherever you want to scout. Of course, as always, guys, since this build's a bit more complicated, I would recommend downloading the replay from the description to check it out again. Obviously, I might miss some details here and there. Like this one. There we go. This is an important detail, actually, so I'm actually going to go back for this. As soon as you start the reactor, you're going to pull all of your SCVs out of gas. And then, since I have one in gas, it says I have two in gas, but one of them is this one, right? It's not there yet. And then you use the SCV from the gas to make a depot here. So you're actually going to have 0 SCVs in gas for a while. And you do this so you can get the 30C earlier. You don't want a factory anytime soon. You just want to get your 30C up fast. So that's why you do it. Then another quick thing is that this build is the slightly greedy version. You could make a bunker with this SCV. But what I prefer to do is to just do this on big maps with ramps. Romanticide, Death Tower come to mind, maybe Pillars of Gold. So you can't be harassed by a Stalker being chronoed walking up the ramp. And in general, 3cc builds are better on big maps anyway. So I prefer to play the non-bunker version. And yeah, just play it on bigger maps that are safer. Then you may be wondering, how are we going to scout if we make no Reaper? So we're going to do this. After 3 Marines, we're actually going to make 2 Reapers. And yeah, I told you guys it might be a little bit complicated. This is actually a new popular way to scout. Before, people would never do this, but ever since Cure did this a lot in Korean TvP, I feel like everyone has been copying it. I did it a while ago as well, and it has a few benefits. Benefit number 1, since you have 2 Reapers instead of 1, obviously, you will more likely get the scout off. Then, second important point is that if Protoss, a lot of times, if they don't see a Reaper at the start, they will send all their adepts to the front. Adept number 1 is arriving now. Adept number 2 might arrive in a bit. Then what you usually do is you send the Reapers around so they don't scout it. And sometimes you will arrive here and there will be no defenses, which will end up in either them having to use a recall and you kill a few probes, or them not using a recall and you kill a bunch of probes. So sometimes you can actually win a game with it too. But the general purpose of these Reapers is just to scout. So if you have to YOLO them past gateway units to get in, you should probably do that. And also, because these Reapers arrive late, the tech is already going to be down 100% of the time, instead of like usually when you might jump in before tech. So you get the second barracks roughly at the same time as the Reapers. I believe you make it a little bit before. Then this is very important here. You have to get a 315 eBay. This one is actually a few seconds late. You just listen to the time. You have to get a 315 eBay. Because the only way to properly defend oracles with this build is to get one turret in the main. So this eBay is actually important. Then after eBay you get the second gas. Just let me remind you guys about checking out the replay, because I know it's very complicated. And I'm also trying to explain things beyond the build order, right? So as you can see here, there are 2 adepts where we're just going to go in. So basically you're going to end up with this setup if you do it properly. 2 barracks. Tech lab is going to be building on this one. +1 can start right away on the eBay. Turret in the main for the oracle. And then the rest of the marines in the natural. Yeah, the only adaptation that you could really make up until this point is that you could make a bunker in the natural to be more safe against like stalker pokes and stuff like that, right? But besides that, this build's actually totally safe against everything so far. Now there's a few different things you could see. If you see a Stargate, you would more likely not really make Marauders from this one, but just make Marines. If you see this, what I'm seeing right now, really fast 3-gate, that's when I'm gonna make the bunker. Because with a fast 3-gate, obviously there's some aggression coming my way. In this case, it was even with a proxied gate, like that was pretty obvious to me. If you see a normal Twilight with no gateways, I would recommend to get a bunker at like 420. Or maybe like 410 to be safe, in case it's a blink call-in. And against Robo, I feel like you don't really have to respond. If anything, against Robo, you could actually make a faster factory. To maybe get like a Cyclone up or something like that. So maybe you could, in the extreme case, the most extreme case would be if someone goes for an instant Robo Bay. And in that case, you could actually cancel the +1 and make a factory. Just in case it's a drop. Like a Colossus drop, Disruptor drop, something like that. So, but that's really extreme case. Most of the time, you don't really have to do any adapting. You just end up making a bunker at the front, really. And that's it. So here I noticed I actually forgot to saturate my gas a little bit. Shame on me. But sometimes, like I always say, I think me making mistakes in videos is nice. Then you guys feel better when you make them yourself. That's what we do at Terran School, guys. We educate, make you guys happier with yourselves. Feels good, man. Then at about 4:30, you usually add the factory. There we go. And the 3rd barracks at the same time. Should be coming down around now. Slightly delayed. Just try to keep those as a rule. Like when you copy things from replay, some things, you know, it's still going to be totally fine. Like if you play like this, it's going to be 100% fine. If you want to do it more simple, just make the 3rd barracks at the same time as the factory at about 4:30, 4:35. And that's no problem at all. Then he's actually going for a glaive attack. At least I believe it's glaives, right? Yeah, it's not super scary. Now, I would recommend pulling some SCVs against stuff like this, because the most important thing against glaives is that they don't snowball against your bio units. In this case, it didn't matter too much because he's not actually reinforcing. But well, I'm gonna survive it. And I would consider myself to be ahead at this point. After the 3rd barracks, you usually go for the double gas. You take both of them at the same time, usually. In this case, I was being attacked, so I guess I forgot about one, or maybe decided I didn't need it, considering I was gonna lose some SCVs. Then obviously after the factory, we get the starport. And in general lines, this build, it's pretty optimized, and I've said it before, maybe in a video, I'm not sure, I say it on stream all the time. I got this build from Cure, and he actually had an amazing, what was it, 155 supply at 730 of like medevac bio mine. So if you do this build correctly, you can actually get like a superhuman amount of supply. Like it's a very good macro build, and it just sets you up very well for a macro game, basically. That's what this entire build is about. Like, I'm sure a lot of you guys try your 3-racks attacks and you get owned by like a super battery or something like that. So this would be a nice alternative to that if you want to go for a macro game. So then we have our medevac setup. Those two barracks normally, they would be a bit faster, but you have to keep in mind I lost 9 SCVs this game, so they're going to be a bit delayed. But normally you pretty much, you get your factory and 3rd barrack same time. You get your 3rd and 4th gas right after, And then right after that, you already make your extra 2 barracks. In this case, I was just pumping SCVs because I really need to get back up in SCV count. But you can definitely get those down a bit faster. So if you do really get those down at 6 minutes, that would be considered pretty late usually. Another thing you could potentially do, by the way, if you play against Stargate, you could actually move out with Stim and +1 as well. If they go like Phoenix, Third Base, Greedy Robo, it's actually pretty good to move out with Stim and +1. That's one timing attack you could hit. I don't think there's any other attack you can really hit with this build. Just against Stargate, you can line up your Stim and your +1 and go for a nice timing attack like that. And then pretty much for the next few minutes, I'm just going to be making Biomine Medevac, that's all. Also, another thing that could be different, if you do this build normally, so you don't lose SCVs, nothing happens early game, you usually get these gases pretty much as soon as you land the third base. Here you can see I'm still in a really nice mineral gas ratio, so I don't need it. But if you don't lose SCVs, you get those a little bit faster. Now, this is not something I would recommend, by the way, the double drop. The most usual play that I see Koreans do, and the one I like to do as well, is drop with 4 medevacs instead. It hits a pretty nice timing. 2 medevacs, obviously at 7 minutes, don't really do anything. In this case, I don't know what this observer positioning is, but, well, he got me good, that's all I can say. This was actually a game I played live on stream, and I remember as I was doing this drop, I was like, yeah, I don't know why I'm doing this, this is a bad idea. And then right after, you blinked on the medevacs, so I guess I was right. So yeah, I would recommend waiting for 4 medevacs. And you don't necessarily have to doom drop, by the way. You can also just go straight through the middle and attack this 4th base. Or attack this base if they take it. Another adaptation you can do, by the way, is if you notice they are playing Colossus, you can make a tech lab here instead of reactor and just make tanks. Because with this build, you have a lot of bio units, like you have an insane amount of units pretty early on. But because of the opener, the 3cc late starport, you will not get like Colossus or Disruptor counters very fast. So a way to circumvent that problem is to just use this to play tanks and mines. And it's not going to be a passive game, you're basically going to play an aggressive game with tanks. You're going to have a lot more bio units than normal, but you're going to have no Vikings. But that's an alternative way you could use to counter Colossus, basically. So then instead of having 6 mines almost, or well, not really almost, 4 mines and 2 more on the way, you could have a tank, second one about to finish, and then you can hit a really nice timing. 1-1, you can see 140 supply. And even this game, you can see my supply is quite high. Losing 9 SCVs very early on, and still being a 142 supply with 1-1 before 8 minutes. I think that's pretty fantastic. Here I'm doing the drop I usually do, by the way. The 4 medevac one. Just, I lost 1 medevac earlier, because I was sloppy, right? So, it's not going to be as powerful. And for macro follow-ups, usually, you always go for the 2-2 first. So, and I've been copying this just from Cure, by the way. Cure has been owning it so hard, so everything I copy is pretty much from him, from this TvP. And I notice he always plays it like this. He just gets his 2-2 out, bio mine, doesn't make anything else. Then he gets a 4th command center. Once again, this game it's a little bit delayed. By 8:30, you definitely want to have your 4th command center building already, usually. And then after that is when he goes for the Ghost Academy, in this order, by the way. After the 4th CC, he goes for the Ghost Academy. Then if it's Colossus, he will make the 2nd starport. And then after that, he will add 3 more barracks. So that's pretty much the perfect macro follow-up, if you ask me. I've been having a lot of success with it too. And yeah, once again, in this game, you can see how many units I have. Because I was stopped in my build. So when you look at the benchmarks, I might have a little bit less supply than normal. But you can see how much I have compared to my opponent. Because he was also a bit crippled, of course. Losing 5 probes. And dedicating his attack with like 10 glaive adepts or so. So I have a better army here. Well, this one he's gonna win out slightly. But my push here is really strong. And here you can see, just like I said, the follow-up is going on. 4th command center. As soon as this, I'm pretty confident I should drop a Ghost Academy as soon as this attack is over. As soon as I realize that, you know, it's held and I need to continue with my macro progress, I should be dropping a Ghost Academy. Because that's what you usually do. Let's see if I prove myself right to my students. Mark from the past, please, you can do it. In any case, I've already won the game with this attack, basically, right? I'm so desperately waiting for the Ghost Academy to drop that now. Like, please. Another addition you could make, by the way, is a sensor tower here. If you're like annoyed by, even if you make turrets, those turrets should have been down earlier, by the way. Like, the Prism coming in at 9 minutes against no turrets, that's pretty sloppy by me. Like, you should definitely, when you start moving out, you definitely want to have some turrets in your main already, like 1, 2, maybe a third one here. But as I was about to say, one thing you can also do is a nice sensor tower here. You will see a Prism coming anyway, so you can prepare, because sometimes they dive past the turret, right, and go in. So a nice sensor tower here, we'll see it coming. We'd also see Zealot run-bys coming. Then I do have a tip for you guys that I never seen anyone else do, but I think is pretty cool. Just check me out, guys. This is going to be 500 IQ, okay? So you might need some time to process it. But you can make a sensor tower here, right? And then you can make a turret here. So if there's DTs coming, you will also see them with the sensor tower. Now, don't try to tell me that's not enormous brain, because I know it is. Anyway, you can see me get my turrets up. I would not usually recommend Liberators, but in this game he didn't have Colossus, and I had so many medevacs already that I just went for them. But even in this case, I would normally recommend more medevacs. Like, yeah, you don't really want to be making Liberators without +2, without range. Yeah, I mean, obviously Liberators without range are not that good. +2 is also very important, because I talked about it before, but I want to talk about it again. Just, you know, get those lessons really in those Terran brains of yours. With +2, Liberators 2-shot Stalkers instead of 3-shot, which obviously is a massive difference. If you have Liberators, if you have EMP, Liberators 1-shot Stalkers instead of 2-shot, which is quite literally half the attacks. So that's a huge deal. And they will also start one-shotting stuff like High Templars and Sentries. So typically you do not make Liberators before +2. And range. +2 is even more important than range, by the way. So yeah, you don't usually get Liberators like randomly like this. It was just something I did on instinct. Yeah, it's not usually the proper move. Oh man, I actually never put down the Ghost Academy. That's a shame. But once again, just so you guys hear it again, the proper macro follow-up. You have 5 barracks, you have your 2-2 building, you get your 4th command center, then you get the Ghost Academy. Then if you're playing against Colossus, you get the 2nd starport, and then you get your 3 extra barracks. So basically, you have an insane bio production the entire game, super high supply, and then after that you really get your macro follow-up going. And the reason why you do it like that is because if you start making those things on just 3 bases, you're actually going to run really low on money, and you might not be able to make bio units all the time, or you may not be able to afford command centers. And I've noticed it flows really well, and that's really the best way to do it. Yeah, make sure to check out the replay, guys. I know it's a complicated build. But I hope you guys really enjoyed the videos. Make sure to drop a like and subscribe to the channel. And see you guys next time. Adios.